G'day, welcome to Project Brupeg. My name's Damien. We're converting a sunken fishing trawler into a global expedition and research boat. This week we're getting stuck back into our aluminium door. We're building the alloy pivots that get welded to the door frame. We're making the stainless dog so that we can latch it up tight against the rubber seal, and we'll also introduce you to our new welder. So in order to make our pivots, we needed to get some 50mm aluminium bar stock, solid bar. We cut it into 4 roughly equal lengths, and then of those 4 we drill a 16mm hole down the middle, and that becomes our central pivot hole. And then these pieces of bar basically get welded onto the frame, and that forms the pivots for our dogs. So I just had to go into town and get a new welder. That was a cool experience actually. First time I've ever bought something that was 100% like not a compromise for the job I'm trying to do. So that was nice. So let me introduce you to our new welder Niblet. That was a name suggested by one of our viewers, Honor Harrington. Thanks mate. Yeah, so we ended up going with an inverter welder mainly because they're so small compared to the big transformer type welders that Nugget was. There's 2 main types of welders you get. So there's, with MIG welding, you've got transformer type welders, which are basically great big blocks of copper windings like what Nugget was. And they're really good, they're really stable, they're pretty dependable, they take a lot to kill them. And they're normally got slightly higher duty cycles, so you can use them like more, well basically for more hours per day. They're more of a commercial unit. However, the downside is they're incredibly heavy and they're difficult to lug around and so on, like Nugget was. The inverter welders, as a generalization, are slightly less in terms of duty cycle. So this one here actually has the same duty cycle as Nugget, so just a better technology and that sort of thing. Inverter welders do seem to have more of a stable arc, so you get a better, well, you can get a better weld out of them, but the main benefit of them is they're incredibly light. So this whole thing's about 13 kgs. This one can do MIG, TIG and arc. It can't do aluminium TIG, but it can do like steel, stainless, that sort of thing. It's a DC TIG. So what the plan is today, so it came with everything ready to set up and weld steel, but because we want to do quite a bit of alloy work in the next few months, and so we actually bought a spool gun. So this is what we're going to be using on the dinghy and on the doors and so on. And the reason this is awesome, if you haven't ever seen one of these before, so you have a spool of wire basically right up in the gun, and then it just travels through a set of wires. So this is a little engine in here, and it travels through these rollers and pushes the wire just out. Well, I've bent it over, but it pushes the wire just out the end of this nozzle. So the wire itself only travels, you know, a really short distance, and it's perfectly straight. So you don't really have any of the troubles with, you know, soft aluminium wire binding up or anything in a gun, versus trying to feed it down a long line like this, and then having to do a sharp bend at the end here and so on. So it's quite difficult to push aluminium down one of these type torches. It's incredibly simple down a spool gun like this. So I've just fired it up for the first time, and I've put the regulator and everything together for the argon bottle and put it on, and it's way better than the old one I had. The old one I had sort of showing its age, but the graduations on the new one are awesome. Like, you can really fine tune how much gas you're putting in and out. This one was a bit sort of clunky, so yeah, I'm going to relegate this one to the spares box. Alright, go figure out how to do the spool gun.
Yeah, I'll tell you when.
Spool gun, yep, cool. I feel like a kid at a toy factory. I put the bed down on there to cut it for 2 seconds, and Mishy's decided that he now owns it. So this morning's job is going to be learning how to weld with a welder that I've never used before, or even a type of welder that I've not used before, and seeing if we can do this good.
What the hell, bro?
Let's show you what monstrosities I've created. So my first ever spool gun welding. So you can sort of see the middle attempts here are a bit hickledy-pickledy, and then up here it's that was with fairly high wire speed, and then I backed it, or sorry, that one there was fairly high wire speed, and then I backed it off to that one there, and I thought I'll try that in a new sort of location and check on wire speed. So the one on the right hand side, actually maybe it's a bit easier to see it that way. Of those two lines there, that top one is what I would sort of say is medium speed with the wire speed backed off, and then that bottom one is quite fast with the wire speed backed off, just to understand how that affects things. So I'm pretty happy with that middle one there. Like you can sort of see nice even speed. It kept a really fairly consistent sort of look. Shape of it's quite nice. I probably have to learn a little bit more about alloy welding in order to get the edges of that weld to bond into the parent metal better. So the gun itself is like a pretty expensive gun. I think it was 500 bucks just for the gun. So like and the reason why I spent so much money on the gun was sort of thinking about it now, mainly is because it's so easy to make alloy welding hard. So I thought I'm better off just to spend the money now and buy once, cry once, and have a really good gun that'll last many years, and just make alloy welding actually something that we can do without even thinking about. One of the features, I didn't realise it had this, but one of the features on this gun is that it has like a soft start sort of arrangement. I don't know if this is normal with aluminium welding, but the wire basically inches out really slow. As soon as it starts arcing, obviously the machine senses that and then belts up the wire speed up to whatever you've set it at. So I don't know why it does it that way, but now that I've understood it's doing that, it seems to be okay. I just have to basically, maybe it's so it floods the weld with argon before I start. Maybe that, yeah, okay, maybe it makes more sense now when I think about it. Just had a go at welding basically into a corner like this. I'm pretty happy with how that weld is turning out now that I've kind of got my head around what to do and how to do it. I think I've got my speed getting better and better. I know I welded over top of like 3 welds there, so there's a lot of rubbish on the weld, but I'm not too stressed about that. I'm more worried about the shape of it, so I can figure out how to get my speed right. The start of that weld's a bit rubbish, and the middle's okay, and the end's pretty garbage, but I think I'm kind of getting my head around this. So I just gave these a quick clean up, and this is the one here that I was sort of quite pleased about, sort of what I would call medium like speed with the hand, like running the hand left to right, and then don't you call it weld travel time, something like that maybe, and then wire speed. I'll show you what I have it set at. So this is my wire speed control on the gun here, and you can crank it up to here. I've sort of got it set about there, and you can come right down this way here. So I don't know, we'll call that about 2 o'clock, something like that. Seems to be pretty good. So this is quite thick. This is 10mm plate, and that bit there over there is a 6mm angle. This machine apparently will do one pass at 8mm, so obviously I'm not, trying to weld the heck out of this. I've hardly prepped it. I've just basically buffed it flat with the stainless wheel. But yeah, I think I'm slowly getting a little bit better welding quality here. So now I kind of got my head around that alloy welding. I'll move on to the next job for this door. So these solid pieces of 50mm round aluminium stock, what I'm going to do is drill the center of these out, and we're going to fit this bolt, which is going to become the pivot. So this shank part of the bolt here, that's going to be sliding in the hole that we're about to make. So we'll get onto the drill press and we'll start machining. So these are the 4 that I have to basically drill. So there's 2 at one height and 2 at the next height, slightly different heights there, you can see. So anyway, I don't want to gark up the surface because it's still going to be a visible thing, so I've just got a piece of PVC pipe that fit quite snugly over top. I've cut a slot down the side there, and then my plan is to get a G-clamp, give this a shot, and just crank the bejeepers out of it. It's pretty stable. I've got a decent thing to hold on to it with. If it spins, it spins. It's really not going to cause that much drama, but it means I can hold on to it really solidly. So now I've just got to pop a hole down the centre of all 4 out to 16 millimeters. So this is the size bolt that we have to eventually get through. You can sort of see it just fits on that shank. So my plan is I've got 3 sizes of drill. I know everybody says you can drill a small hole so long as it clears the tip, and then use your main drill to drill whatever your material you're drilling out. I don't like doing that. The reason being is because you're relying on every part of that cutting edge to be perfect, and if it's not, the drill's going to start wandering, and I want this to be really accurate. So I'm going to drill it out to, I think that's 5 or 5.5 mil. I think that one is. Size really doesn't matter at this point. So 5.5 mil. This is a 10 mil cobalt. Not that that matters, but it's a 10 mil cobalt, and then this is 16 mil. So I'm going to be taking 3 mil out of each side as I go down through that last cut, and because there's not going to be so much material, the tool doesn't have to work as hard, and therefore doesn't have to, you know, try and stay as straight as what it normally would, if that makes sense. I'm probably not using the right words, but the theory still works. Lovely! So magicked up these 4, bolt goes in perfect. It's exactly what I was after. So let's go and get these put onto the door. Alright, so these are going to form the centre of what's going to be a dog. So I don't want them down in each corner, I want them sort of up maybe a third from the bottom here and a third in at the other end. What I plan to do is weld them in place like this, but I want them flush with the surface over here, so that's why I've got this on the bench. You can see that's right down flush on the bench, bang that over there like that, and I know they're going to be pretty close, which is about what it needs to be. It needs to be within a millimetre, so that when all the bonding agent and everything goes on the outer skin, when that eventually gets on, that it works out fine. What I do plan to do is add in some gussets in here, because I need a lot of strength in this area, so we'll use some I've got some 10mm, but I think I'll probably use 6mm, and we'll gusset it with the 6mm. Right, so I've buffed all of the outside of this, I've buffed the door. Time to weld. What my plan is just tack this in, and then I'll make up the gussets and everything once I know where I've got to do it, you know, where I've got to mount them and so on. I'll make those gussets up, and then I'll spray the whole lot with acid because it's all been buffed. I'll spray it with acid and then wash that off and get straight into welding. So I quickly fashioned up this. It's basically a gusset. You can see it against the dark on my shirt there. It's a gusset that's going to fit over top of that pivot that I've just welded in. So I'm going to weld it all the way around. So I'll do it on both sides as far as I can, the whole way around, and I'll mount it about halfway up this alloy here. So I've gone through, cleaned all of this down. I've buffed everything that I can. This has been buffed with the stainless, and then everything that I can't reach has been acid washed. So, we'll mask up as soon as I find a mask. Okay, so for some reason my gas was disappearing when I welded. I don't know what I've done, but I must have bumped the setting on it, because that is awful.
Oh, I got it. I fucked up the wire speed massively.
And next thing that I've learnt with this alloy welding is it's incredibly sensitive when it comes to thickness of alloy. So with my old MIG welder, when I'm welding steel, I used to basically have that thing cranked up because I wanted as much penetration, and the steel was normally right at the top end of what that machine could do anyway in terms of thickness. However, welding alloy, so at the moment I'm welding, I don't know, whatever thickness that is, 15, 20 mil, something like that, and I'm welding it to 6 mil alloy, so I need as much heat as I can get basically, because this thing's like a big heat sink and it's just completely absorbing all the heat. So I've got everything at max, welding it along, it's beautiful. As soon as I swap over and start doing these gussets and things around here, the heat just absolutely annihilates it, so I have to back it off quite a way. I didn't realise that straight away, and that's partly why I was just making an absolute dog's breakfast of it. But now that I kind of figured that out, the welds are starting to turn out alright. I obviously have to be much more awake when it comes to what I'm doing with wire thickness, wire speed, you know, in relation to aluminium thickness.
Yeah.
Coffee break?
Oh yeah.
Coffee break. Alright, so I just got to knock up another couple of these gussets. So I'll throw that in there. And we'll do precisely measure that. Yeah, we can make that work. Alright, let's go cut these out on the saw. Alright, let's go and cover all of these in acid, and we'll see what the welds ended up coming up like underneath all of this black oxide. So my normal camera's died, so I'm using my phone, but some of the welds are a bit average, but some of them are okay. I'm sort of happy, overall I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. The Spool Gun, they actually look better in real life than they do on this camera for some reason, but there you go, you can sort of see that's what they came up like. Some of them could definitely be improved, but they are going to be absolutely fine for what we're trying to do. Just has to provide a heap of strength, so there's no way that's going to come off easy, so we should be good. So with the changeover to a new welder, most of my supplies don't fit. So Nugget used to take these big 15 kg rolls of wire, whatever diameter of the wire was irrelevant, it was always 15 kgs, and they're quite big in terms of you know, the welder that's needed to be able to hold these things. The new welder takes these little ones. This is an aluminium spool, but it's 2 kgs. If this was metal, it would be a 5 kg roll, like steel or stainless, it would be a 5 kg roll. So they're physically significantly smaller. This fits inside the body of the welder. However, I don't have any stainless 309 wire that's in this reel size. I've only got the great big ones. So I need to make a little spooler to allow that to unroll. So I'm going to use the last of my 15 kg. So what I've done is I've taken the mechanism out of Nugget. This is basically, you can see there's a little hole just there. This here slides on like so. Let me assemble it for you, righto. So, slides on like so. That little pin clips in to that wheel, and then that allows that whole thing, you can adjust the tension. There's a screw in there, you can adjust the tension so that you don't get bird's nest, and this can really gently and evenly unroll as you're using it when you're welding. What I need to do is create a little stand to utilize that so that I can use my big 15 kg reels outside of the new welder. So I've started that, and I'll show you what I've come up with. Got a few ideas as to how to build this. The plan for now is this: I've buffed the corners off so it's nice and clean. I've cleaned up this piece of 6mm steel. I'm just going to weld this to there. I'm going to arc weld because I don't have any MIG welding steel capabilities at the moment until I get this thing built. So belt a couple of arc welds across there, and then I'm going to put a handle on the top so I can lift the whole thing and then cut it down here somewhere to length. I'll also run a vertical down here so that this, because I'm assuming this is going to be a bit flimsy that way, so yeah, stiffen it up that way, put a handle across there and then trim it off to length. Eventually when I get a bit of time I'll give it a sandblast and a paint, and that's going to be my long-term 15 kg wheel storage. I've just thrown a couple of beads on this from the old arc welder, actually sorry, the new arc welder, and it was so much easier to weld with. Inverter arc versus the old transformer style arc. Again, I'm like one of the worst arc welders in the history of the world, so don't judge me for these welds, but yeah, I was really stoked. It worked really well. I'm revising my earlier statement of it worked okay. That's the second arc weld I've done with this thing, and it's the best arc weld I've ever done in my life. I'm absolutely stoked with that. So now that it's all built, let me show you what we ended up with. So I've got my 309 LSI stainless wire on my mount. It looks a wee bit precarious just sort of sitting there, but it all works fine and it's pretty solid. The wire slides up along here, just goes into the standard rollers and everything. Normally you can sort of see that central hub there, that's where the normal 5 kg roll will be sitting. When I run out of wire I won't be buying any more 15s, I'll just buy the 5s. And then from there it just obviously comes around and out and into the MIG gun, and this is the new MIG gun. So let's go and get some welds going and see how good this thing works. So my plan is this. I'm not going to do any prep. It's just a piece of heavy wall. I think it's schedule 10 stainless, so it's maybe 3mm thick stainless pipe. Not going to do any prep. We're just going to blast a weld on there and see what it does. Kind of the worst possible conditions to see what this machine is capable of doing. So I've got it set at what the recommended speeds and everything are, and then we'll just see from there. We'll see how good it welds as a baseline. That is so different to use compared to Nugget. So that's what it left with. That was just a straight run, no weaving, no anything. It was a push, not a pull. And that was actually a pull. I went from that end and I was coming this way, and I was doing a zigzag all the way, like a V pattern all the way through. So both of them are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so I've had a bit more of a muck around with it, playing with speeds and voltages and that sort of thing to try and increase and decrease heat going into it. I've gone faster and slower with how fast I'm moving the torch across the work and so on. I think I've found a happy medium. I think all of the settings and everything that come with the machine are probably a bit low. I like to sort of get things a bit hotter so I can really blast the weld into it, into the work and so on. And also most of the stuff I'm doing is 6mm, which is probably close to the top end of this machine. I'd say the top end's probably 8mm on this machine, according to their settings, but I think I'll probably just say 6mm's the highest that you can go with a single pass. You can weld heavier metals, but you just have to do more than one pass. So if you're joining, if you got say a right angle join, instead of one bead right down in the corner, you'd basically put one in the corner and then 3 over top. Exactly the same as what we did on the radar mast. There's a link in the corner if you want to have a look at that, where we joined the wings onto the central pillar. Yeah, it was exactly the same deal. That was all 6mm and I wanted it to be super strong, so I ended up with a 3-pass weld around each of them. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do... It's waiting for Jess to stop talking so loud. Alright, so the next thing we've got to build is some door handles for our aluminium side doors. So what I'm going to do is make some 250mm So what's that in inches? That's 10 point something inches. I'm going to make handles about that long. I'm going to make them out of 25 by 8mm stainless. I'm not converting that into imperial because there's no possible chance I'll get that right. 1 inch by, oh fuck, who cares? 250mm long. I'm going to do a bit of a bend in them so that they sort of come out from the door and you don't dust your knuckles every time you try and open the door. I have a big long length of 25 by 8 stainless. Also got the bolt that we had earlier that we were using to drill those pivots, so this is going to become the actual door pivot itself. The handle gets welded onto the end of the bolt here, and then I'll obviously clean it up so it doesn't look like a bolt. It'll look nice when I'm finished, but basically the handle gets welded onto this end here, so immediately you've got that much distance that it's sticking out from the door, but then we're going to bring it up and bring it along like that, and then I'll try and do a little curve on the end just to make it sort of look nice and you don't catch yourself as you're walking past. So let's get into it and build some door handles. Right. So I'm pretty much designing this on the fly, so we'll be doing some thinking as I'm doing some drawing. $25mm. Alright, so this is what we're left with. So basically I've cut, it was 250mm long in one direction. I've cut obviously it to length and then sliced about 2/3 of the way through there and there, bent it the way I want it. That'll get welded on the bottom there like that, and this will get rounded off and cleaned up so it won't look like a bolt. That'll get welded on there like that. All of this will be rounded off so it'll all, you know, look sort of lovely in that direction there. I'll fill these up with welds and then flapper those off and it'll all look like one piece of stainless. I did it upstairs, it looked quite nice on some of the other dogs. And then this here I'll round off these corners here, but the purpose of that is basically so that when it's up against a surface like that, it's pretty hard to catch yourself on that end as you're walking past. So this will all be rounded off and be lovely, but yeah, it's basically just a kind of a safety thing so when you're racing up the front of the boat you don't get hooked up. So now that I've got a welder that works, we'll get stuck in, we'll weld all of those bits up, we'll flapper them down so they look nice, and then we'll start welding this to that bolt and see if we can start putting this thing together. I had a really nice weld in there, but I want to bring this up really bulbous and then flapper it all off. So the weld that I had in there was a beautiful shape and everything, I was happy with it, but it would have left some slight dimples below the surface. So I want it to appear like a one-piece handle, that's why I've added another layer on that one there. Slowed down a bit on that weld there and I was able to sort of do it in one pass. I reckon I don't think there's going to be too many bits below the surface on that one. So that's the last weld that just went through, so you can sort of see it's pretty nice profile. Like I probably could have improved it a little bit at the end there, but overall I'm pretty happy with that. This welder is a hell of a lot easier to get a nicer bead than with Nugget. I think with Nugget it really came down to skill, whereas this thing here you could probably get away with a fair bit. Yeah, pretty stoked so far though. I want these to look nice, so trick if you're doing stainless, use a flapper wheel that is new and hasn't been on any other steel. If you use one that's been on other steel, you end up embedding mild steel into your weld and then it will forever rust. You'll never get it out. Look at that! And that turned out alright. So that's basically the plan, is go through and shape them all like that so that it looks like a one-piece handle when I'm finished. I'll do all around the edges and all that sort of stuff so you'll never tell. I'll also round these edges off because they're a wee bit sort of manky and coarse. But yeah, we'll clean all of that up. And then the next thing I'll do is go through and sandblast this. When it's all built and finished, I'll sandblast it so we get a nice sort of rough finish on it. There'll be no sharp edges, but it'll be sort of rough so that it's really decent and easy to grab hold of. Pretty happy with how it turned out. It's nice sort of smooth shape and everything like that. There's no lumps or bumps or anything. It's nice and rounded off. All the edges here are nice and smooth. What the plan is now, we'll go through, and this is the end I'm working on, so this will be the end that attaches to the door. So I'm going to weld the bolt to this end. I grab the bolt. What I've got to do is V off the two opposing sides, because as I weld that on, you can see there's next to no distance between the bolt and the piece of stainless. So I'm going to V it out so that I can fill that right up, and then we'll clean this up, we'll round this end off, and then we'll take it over to the sandblaster and get this thing done so that it looks like a lovely wee handle. I'm clearly doing something wrong. I'm getting no wire feed, and I have no idea why yet. Okay, apparently that's not the problem.
That's good, better.
I think I had the gun a bit too coiled up tightly. I didn't realise that, but obviously I did, so it's working great now. That'll sandblast up nicely. That'll do. Alright, 8 more of those to go and we're finished. So the way these dogs work is pretty simple. It's basically just a bolt with a shank welded to a handle. However you want to fashion that in terms of what it looks like is entirely up to you. The tricky bit is doing this bit. So this is a laser cut piece. It's a piece of stainless, but it's laser cut and it has this D with this flat that you can see on it just there. These aren't the right ones to go as a pair, but basically the way that it works is this bolt, if you slice a third of it off and create a flat all the way along that thread, you can still do a nut up on it, but it also slides in here and locks up tight. And what it means is because of that flat, every time you open the outside, the flat automatically drags the inside one with it. You've then got a nut on the inside which cranks it up. I like to put a small nut on this side, like not an eye lock, just a flat normal, quite a thin nut if you can, and then on this side I put an eye lock and crank them up, and it basically works like a locking nut type arrangement. You jam this in between the two, and it also allows you to be really precise in terms of adjustment that way with your door. Once that's all bolted together, this part of the inside handle forms the like the latch that goes on the inside. So you just create like like a wedge is probably the easiest way to describe it, like a door wedge. You basically create that out of stainless and you weld it on the inside, and then as you crank this up onto that actual onto that wedge, or in this case it's going to be going down, we'll crank it down onto that wedge. This here basically pulls the door further and further in and therefore jams it up against the rubber seal. So it's a pretty simple system. It's used by dozens of trawlers and things in the yards, and all of the handles and so on Brupeg were built that way. So yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to make a whole bunch of those and yeah, get stuck into it, and that way we know it's going to work, we know it's incredibly simple, and there's next to no moving parts that can break down on us. Next week on Brupeg, we do some stainless welding. We try on a pair of gloves. We look at an anode. We check out some shit hot welding. And we make sure the door works in both the open and closed functions.
River's gonna cry when you're